Welcome to the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show, the longest running weekly Philly sports podcast show in the world. 12 years strong. We got a great show for you this week. Hello, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening through whatever audio platform you're on, it's great to be in your ears. I'm Jeff Warren. I'm here with my buddy Eric Leonard. Eric, you got some new artwork there in your little studio area in your basement. I love AI, and I'm not talking about, for folks listening, I'm not talking about the tech. I love the AI, the tapestry that you have right there. Oh, it's fantastic. It looks great.
Thanks. It's good. I watched the first two shows and I'm like, man, I got nothing going on behind me but a beer fridge and wood paneling. And I was like, yeah, I gotta spruce this up a little bit. So
you got
made
Doc.
a good purchase.
Yes.
Yeah. And Doc, of course. I mean, Doc's usually, he was always here over top of me.
Yes.
Seeing, like Jesus. But now he's back there looking over my shoulder.
Yes.
So
looks great. Looks great.
Thanks,
and,
man.
Yeah. Look, folks, we got a great show this week. A lot of stuff. We've got a great interview that we're going to be getting to, what we're throwing down on the table this week. We've got Dave Howman from bloggingtheboys.com and the Writer's Block podcast joining us for a dive into what the NFC East is actually looking like, especially after the NFL draft and free agency, what every team in the NFC East has been doing. We're going to get into that. Again, that's what we're throwing down on the table. But Eric and I are going to start off talking about this Phillies team and the fact that they really don't have much of an offensive identity at this point. We'll dive into it. And then from there, we're going to get into some NBA talk. Of course, with the postseason now underway, some bizarre stuff going on for sure in the NBA. It's making the postseason very, very interesting. Then we're going to get into draft lotteries. Do we like draft lotteries? Are they fair? Give our thoughts there. Then we're going to rank the Eagles drafts over the past 5 years in terms of, what our favorite drafts were and what we think were the best Eagles drafts over the past 5 years. So with that being said, Eric, buddy, let's get started with this Philadelphia Phillies team. What we've seen from them, pitching, not horrible by any stretch of the imagination. Look, they're still second in the NL East as of us recording this here on May 7th, 2025. Like I said, their offensive identity has yet to really manifest itself this season. We know they're a power hitting club, and there are some major power hitters on this team, but that power consistency still really hasn't happened at all this season. We can look at specific players, of course, like Kyle Schwarber. Okay. He is absolutely killing it this season. There's nothing to really analyze with him when it comes to his offensive prowess this season. I think 40 to 50 home runs for him is not out of the realm of possibility. But after that, you've got Bryce Harper, who's been in a very prolonged slump. And when it comes to power, I think he's just had 2 home runs at his last 59 at-bats. I mean, it's time to start wondering possibly how injuries have affected him physically and affected his power, being his 14th season here in Major League Baseball. And, of course, you have a slew of other Phillies that just are not getting it done from an offensive standpoint. There is no offensive identity when it comes to this Phillies team here. And I don't know. I don't want to say I'm so concerned about it because it's still, quote, early this season. And a lot of folks are saying, yeah, okay, we're getting to the point where you really can't say that it's early this season. But I mean, May, we still have the entire summer to go through. And, what's going to happen with this team towards the latter part of the season, that's when it really does count. So I'm hoping that power consistency really starts coming around, as we're getting into the month of May here, man. What are your thoughts here?
Well, it's funny because everything I wrote down in my notes is to, attack their meager offensive outputs so far this season, but they won 7-0 tonight.
Yeah.
Trey Turner had a big home run.
Finally.
I know, but he was batting .307 this year.
Yeah.
The Mets won as well, so they're still 2 games back. But outside of tonight's game, you look at it, I mean, good overall basic stats. Batting average, OPS is kind of in the top 10 across the board in Major League Baseball. But some deeper stats I pulled today. They're 15th overall in bats per home run at 32.19. That's literally right in the middle. They're 15th overall out of 30 teams. And when you're supposed to be a power hitting team, you're kind of in the middle of the road in terms of hitting home runs.
Yeah.
It's tough to win games, tough to score runs. But these two stats really jumped out at me and kind of speaks to the lack of hitting when it matters. 25th overall in grounded and double plays at a .077. That's a bad stat. You don't want to be
not good.
No. And probably the worst one is 27th overall in runners left in scoring position at 3.97. They're pretty much at the, in the basement for those two stats, which means they're not hitting when guys are on base. They're grounding into double plays, making it easier on the other team. We talked about the Mets, and offensively, they're not a juggernaut quite yet. Yeah. But what did concern me was how the Phillies played them in their 3-game set a couple of weeks ago, where the Mets just handed their asses to them. And offensively, they were terrible, the Phillies, in those 3 games. It was really not the kind of series you wanted to have against the team that knocked you out of the playoffs and your biggest rivals. So
right.
They play again in June. This is a very streaky offensive team. Thank goodness the pitching has been solid, has been consistent, because as we know, the offense is going to be up and down all year, and that's just how this team is built. But they're also getting older, so that bouncing up and down is going to take longer to occur over time, unfortunately, because you're going to start to have injuries. There's no way you're going to avoid it with this team.
Yeah,
especially your offensive players. So I'm hoping they get hot here soon, because it's beginning of May. They've won a couple games here, 21-15, but I think I said in the previous show, you kind of wanted to come like guns firing out of the gate. They did it in the very beginning of the season, but just not looking like that now.
Yeah, the first 3 series they won, and then after that it was just basically right off a cliff. But then again, you look at this team, Eric, and it's kind of what we thought, and it seems like it's what the Phillies front office thought. Concentrate on some fantastic pitching, and then if and when the hitting comes around, it'll come around, and it's going to be spotty here and there. I don't know if you're going to hang your hat on that going into potentially a postseason run, which that is the expectation, but how we thought the pitching was going to work and be more dominant than the hitting, I mean, that's actually happened. So I guess what the Phillies front office wanted to do this offseason, it's kind of working here at this point. Again, second in the division.
It is. Like I said, I'm worried about, because of the age and the lack of consistency, and they're already a streaky team. Like, I mean, oh my God, I just lost Castellanos. He is the all-time, like, he will scorch earth for 10 days in a row.
Yeah.
And then just fall into oblivion for a week.
Yes.
And like, I kind of wish there was more consistency across the board with this team, but this is what you paid for.
Yeah.
And this is how you've gotten to the postseason the past 3 seasons. Like, you just pray the pitching keeps up. Maybe Andrew Painter comes up at some point. Does somehow Aiden Miller, Justin Crawford make an appearance down the road if there's injuries?
Justin Crawford is absolutely killing it in Lehigh Valley at this point. He's killing it.
I know they're both expected to hit the league in 2026, but who knows?
Yeah.
And I hope we don't see them in a trade to bring in someone else down the road, because we do have the injuries, but they won tonight, and just one game at a time. I sound like a baseball player at post-game interview, but that really is what this team is. You know what I mean? Like, I love this team, but my God, I just wish some of the young guys would step up, like Stott and Baum. And that's we talked about in the previous show a bunch of times. Like, this is the year we need at least 1 or 2 of these guys to like start to take the mantle from another one of the older players. But Alec Baum is missing in action. Like,
yes,
like on the back of a milk carton. He's been terrible.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting to see where this team goes in these next few series here. I think when you look at the New York Mets and their quote dominance within the division, they've had a very, very favorable schedule. The Phillies have had a schedule where it has been a little tougher. Yes, everybody has to play everybody in this league, and things are spread out throughout the schedules for all of these teams. But at the end of the day, the Phillies are going to get some ease here and there in terms of their schedule, of course. So, anyway, that being said, with regard to the Phillies, Eric, let's get into some NBA talk here. Couple different topics we wanted to dive into, and folks, no Sixers, because there's just really nothing at this point to talk about with this damn team, except for the fact that it seems like Elton Brand's going to be back in the front office, from what I've read. Eric,
great. Oh, good.
Great.
Thank God.
Right, exactly.
He was a disastrous free agent signing and a front office disaster. Let's bring him back. What the? This is the same damn city that just keeps bringing Ruben Amaro back to the Phillies. He ran him into God bless him. He was part of the 08 team, but ran him into the ground. Didn't do the right things. Anyway, let's bring him back and put him in the booth so we know he's Eric every goddamn night.
Exactly.
When he's in there. God, he sucks.
Well, getting into this NBA discussion here on the episode this week here, read an article and wanted to bring this up because it deals with NBC and what they are going to be doing from a promo standpoint. So after reacquiring NBA rights last summer, the NBC, the network itself, and NBC Sports, they've been doing some good things by bringing in some solid talent, hiring some pretty good talent, bringing back, Round Ball Rock. But then yesterday, news came out that they're going to be using AI to recreate Jim Fagan's voice for promotional materials. Now, for folks, if you're a little younger, you may not necessarily know who Jim Fagan was. He passed away in 2017, but as many of us older folks know, he was the classic voice for the NBA and for NBC's network during the 1990s. He did all the promos back then, and it's really bizarre that the lack of creativity in terms of what this era is and what NBC is wanting to do, Eric, here now in 2025, it's like they want to go back in time here. And it's so bizarre to me. We just wanted to give our thoughts on how networks and others who are using AI for this kind of marketing, like if it's good, if it's even good for the brand, if it's good for basketball or whatever sport it is, because I look at something like this, Eric, and I'm like, I think this is crap, to be honest. I think that you have an era where there are certain guys like, look, the 80s and the 90s, you had John Madden, Pat Summerall. Those were the voices of the NFL. Jim Fagan was certainly that voice in the 1990s and even beyond for the NBA in terms of NBC. You have certain voices for certain periods of time and certain eras. Why try to recreate that? It's something I don't understand. I think this is crap. I think it's garbage. Just because you can use AI in this regard, I don't think it's a good thing. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? I think this sucks, to be honest.
There's a lot of really good announcers and a lot of great voices out there now.
Yes.
You know what? If the NBA wants to give me $1 million, I have a good voice. I mean, you want me to?
Your voice is like silk. Like
it is
silk.
It is. And but where does this shit end? I mean, is the NFL? You brought up Summerall and John Madden. That's a great one. Like, do you really want to hear a game called by those two?
No, I don't, because I remember and loved the games of the 80s and 90s that they called.
It's like, is NFL Films going to do an AI version of John Facenda, and bring back that voice? I don't get it. Like if you always have one foot in the past, like, and the NFL is a bad example because they always make money, but like the NBA has always been like, they always kind of put a shine on the past, but are always trying to move forward, which is why this story kind of surprised me.
It's a little baffling. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, why not, like, Round Ball Rock? I understand it's a song. It's stupid as hell, but it's the catchiest goddamn thing ever written. There's so many great like comedy bits written about it.
Yeah.
I just, why don't like Major League Sports like use AI to the advantage of its fans?
Yeah.
Meaning, like, if like during a game, spit stats out at me, like have some kind of bot, something that can watch a game, a player, and be like, hey, 3 weeks ago, this guy did this, and boom, like we see a trend here.
Yeah.
Have it flash on my phone or have it flash on the screen. Like, there's so many cool things you can do. And what's your solution? You're going to go grave digging, basically. Like,
Yes,
it's
that's
morbid
great.
and creepy just as a human like standpoint. I was thinking of like, are we going to bring back like Herb Morrison, who
Oh,
like I had to look it up, but he was the guy that did the Hindenburg announcing.
yes.
Oh, the humanity! Like how far back do we want to go with this nonsense? I just think like don't like the NBA's always been forward thinking. Don't just stop with this shit.
Who's clamoring for this stuff?
Nobody.
Like, that's the thing. It's like, is it just lazy? Or are they justifying it? Oh, it was so good for this time. We got to keep it. We got to keep it and or bring it back. Is it just laziness? Because I don't know. There are times, because, you know, you look at Hollywood at times and the recreation of certain movies or one-offs of other movies, and you think, my gosh, Hollywood's gotten to a point where they're not really creative as much anymore, even though some things are. Anyway, maybe that's a bad example, but like, I feel like from a creativity standpoint, from a media standpoint, like, things like, sometimes there are so many creative spaces and people doing things that you look at these major conglomerates and you say, how and why are you doing the things that you're doing right now? Because there's better stuff out there. And like you said, there are so many better announcers that you know, you could use their voice on promo materials. We don't need to bring Jim Fagan's voice back. It just doesn't need to happen.
No, and look at what got you successful in the first place. It's kind of the innovations within the viewing ship of a game, like the camera angles, putting the camera over top of the court on a line, right? Using drones, that kind of stuff with cameras, and like bringing back the voiceover thing is just, it's just not forward thinking. Like, where it is kind of cool, like say you're at a Sixers game and like they'll use Dave Zinkoff's voice every now and again. He was the old, you know, Spectrum announcer, and it just got Julius the doctor, like they'll do that kind of stuff. That's cool. But if it was his voice, AI generated, and he's announcing fucking Quentin Grimes, I'm like, no, I don't like this at all. This is
right.
It's an insult to Mr. Zinkoff, who was the best of all time. And it again, just take a look at what got you there, you know, successful in the first place. This is not the way to do it.
Moving on, this NBA playoff and postseason, holy cow, Eric. We'll get into it really quick here before the break. But as of us recording this, there is no home team that has won a playoff game in the second round so far. Nothing is normal here. Nothing is going on. I think OKC may actually beat Denver tonight at home. 30. Yeah, they're up 30. So that's probably going to happen. And for those of you listening to this Thursday or after, so, you know, OKC may be the first team to do that. But man, it is bizarre. You do not see this in the NBA at all. You never see, especially in the postseason. And who the hell thought that the New York Knicks were going to go into Boston and beat them the first two games of the series? Give me a break. Like, I'm not complaining necessarily, because it's fun basketball. We've been watching some fun and interesting basketball, when sometimes the NBA postseason can be a little shaky here and there, especially the first couple of rounds. It's been interesting so far.
Well, especially as a gambler, the first round is pretty textbook. Typically, I've won a lot of money in the first round.
Right.
Second round's a little harder, but not too much. You almost always pick the first. You almost always pick the home team in the first game, because this team coming in typically has like 1 day off, and the home team had like 5 days off.
Yeah.
I think this goes to show like how talented the league is top to bottom. The Pacers, I mean, going to Cleveland. Cleveland was the top team all year long, record wise. They didn't have Darius Garland, but still. And I like the Pacers, but then you watch them in those two games, and you're like, you look at the roster, and you're like, it's a good fucking team.
Yeah,
just as good as Cleveland, honestly. Like top to bottom, they have like 7 solid dudes, and it's all you need in the playoffs. They have a great coach, and I think the playoff rankings and the regular season is just too long at this point for the NBA. I'll even say that as a fan. But like, I think the league is so talented, 1 through like 24, I would say. Even the bad teams that didn't get in are pretty damn good, pretty talented. But this is the Knicks have blown my mind. I have to say it. We drafted Bridges the guy who made the 2 top defensive stops in the playoffs so far
Yeah, I
to
know.
beat the defending champions at home.
Yeah.
He made both stops against their 2 superstars, Jalen
Yes.
Green the other night and tonight Tatum.
But
And
we
we
got rid of
drafted
him.
him.
Yeah.
We traded him for Zaire Smith.
That night. Yes, that night.
Correct. Yep.
Draft him, and then, you know what? Actually, we don't want you. Just go
Zaire
someplace
Smith
else.
Zaire Smith has been out of the league for, I think, 3 years.
Yeah.
That's how bad this is.
Jesus.
So, fingers crossed for Monday, guys. Fingers crossed,
Yes.
which I'm kind of going into our next
Absolutely.
topic, basically. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a good segue for sure, because when we get back from break, we're going to talk about draft lotteries, whether it's the NHL Draft Lottery or the NBA Draft Lottery. And do we like draft lotteries? We also got some Eagles talk coming, as well as some NFC East talk with our guest this week. So if you are new to listening to the PST podcast show, follow us on various social media sites out there. So just search out the Philadelphia Sports Table, and you can follow us on Instagram, on Twitter/X. I'm over on TikTok at Mr. Jeff Warren. Got our Facebook page. Search us out there. Eric and I are on Threads at Slen1023 for Eric, at Mr. Jeff Warren for me, and we're both on Blue Sky. Just search out Jeff Warren, and for Eric at Brick Pollitt over on Blue Sky. And same for if you got the visual here on YouTube, and if you're listening on audio, just search us out online. And with that being said, we are going to take a break, and we're going to be back in just a bit. All right, we are back, and we are going to be diving into draft lotteries. Look, the Philadelphia Flyers ended this season in a way where, no, they weren't tanking. This was a team that was actually trying. However, they were slated to be the number 4 overall pick heading into the NHL Draft Lottery. And after it was all said and done, they fell to number 6 after the lottery drawings. We're going to be talking a little bit more about the Philadelphia Flyers in terms of their draft and what's going to be coming to them next week during with the content on this podcast platform. So yes, they fell to number 6 after the lottery drawings. NBA, as we know, also uses the draft lottery, and who the hell knows what's going to happen to the Philadelphia 76ers, as we're going to find out a lot more this coming Monday as it pertains to the Sixers. So I don't know about you, Eric. Like, there are, of course, pros and cons to draft lotteries, but I'm getting to the point where, and I know it's like, I'm getting to the point where I'm just like, you know what? Are draft lotteries even fair? Because I look at the Flyers situation. They were not their number 4 draft pick overall heading into this, and then they became the number 6th, and they had the new Utah team actually basically took the number 4 spot, and they had a better record than the Flyers. And it really kind of like, it just kind of ticks me off in a way. Like, I wish it was kind of like the NFL, where there wasn't necessarily the draft lottery, but I do understand that the draft lottery does help weaker teams rebuild by giving them a higher chance to secure top talent. And it discourages teams from deliberately losing games and tanking. In the NBA, I'm not too sure how much that works, but in the NHL, I can absolutely see it. But I tend to think that draft lotteries anymore are kind of garbage, in my opinion. I don't know if you have a different opinion. I think it's not as fair. And what are your thoughts on it? That's where I stand.
I mean, some mixed thoughts. I mean, let's face it. If the Flyers jumped in number 2, would you be so mad?
You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, I mean,
you're absolutely right.
I mean, every time the Sixers got a number 1 pick, I was like, I like the lottery. This is great.
Yeah.
No, it like, football's different because you can't really tank in football. There's 16 games.
Yeah.
You can do certain things, but there's so many players involved, and there's like players fighting for contracts because there's no guaranteed contracts in the NFL. Whereas the NBA, you just sit all your, like, look at the Sixers. The last 50 games of their season, maybe, they were like, we are going to lose, and that's just the way it is.
Yep.
Now, if teams wanted to do that year in and year out and go 10-72 every year, and you just gave them the first pick, like, what's their incentive? Like, okay, we took the first pick, didn't work out, we're just going to do it again.
Yeah.
and just again and again.
Yeah.
Sometimes those teams have to be punished, and wind up with like the fifth or sixth pick. It's not a perfect system, but they tried it without it in the past, and the NBA got really fucked up, you know,
Yes.
when that happened. Hockey, I have no idea. Hockey usually follows the path of the NBA typically. Because I think Gary Bettman for the longest time wasn't he he was a David Stern guy, right? And he kind of
Yeah.
took
Yeah.
over the NHL. Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of NBA DNA in the NHL's like front offices, probably still to this day. But I can see it both ways. I don't. It does create some excitement, that's for sure. Like
It
I
does.
May 12th Monday is like I can't wait as a Sixers fan. But
Yes.
at the same time, if what happened to the Flyers happens to the Sixers Monday night, OKC gets our pick. We drop 2 spots like the
We
Flyers did.
effed. Yeah. Yes.
We fucked. I'll just say it.
Yes.
Whole season was a disaster, and it will be an unmitigated dumpster fire if they lose that pick.
Yeah.
Especially if OKC wins a title. What a mess. But there's no good answer. You know what I mean? But what I will say is I didn't watch the NHL one, and I missed the days where they did it live on the air. They pulled the ping pong ball.
Oh, they did with the fly. Yeah, they did with the NHL. Yeah.
That is
Yep.
awesome. Like that's the
Yep.
way you should do it.
Yeah.
Like if you want to like keep me on the lottery side, make it a show. Like make it like freaking Jeopardy, whatever dumb
Yeah,
game
yeah.
show you think of. Like I don't like when they come out and like, here's the card. Like it's like, no, I want to see the ping pong ball. Like let's
Yeah.
make it fun. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna have conspiracy theories regardless. I know that's the 1985 NBA draft with Patrick Ewing. Everybody thought
Yes.
yeah, that they froze the card or whatever. It was so ridiculous. And same with when Penny Hardaway got drafted by the Magic. They think that David Stern fixed it so you get Penny to Shaq. But so what? I'm still talking about it. Like, just
Yeah.
do it. Like, just
Yeah.
do it live on TV.
I felt like seriously watching the NHL Draft Lottery. I felt like I was watching the Pennsylvania Lottery with the with the balls that are just like going up.
Listen, if you watch
Yes.
the Pennsylvania Lottery from June 98 to June of 1999, that was me on the camera.
Oh, there you
Yes.
go, folks.
My
There
TV
you go.
station actually did the Pennsylvania State Lottery. Yeah.
Ooh, fun facts with Eric here.
I would do the wide shot, and then my partner would do this medium shot, and then as the balls came up, that was me zooming in and tilting. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I know.
Great to know. I need to go
Yeah.
back and watch some of this stuff.
Oh, they're thrilling.
Yes. All right. Well, let's move on here into some Eagles talk. And then again, what we're throwing down on the table this week, we're going to talk to our friend Dave Howman from bloggingtheboys.com about the NFC East in general. But with the Philadelphia Eagles, news came out today, and honestly, it was welcoming news for me. I was very happy to hear that the Eagles found a way to resolve the Dallas Goedert contract impasse with a restructure. It's coming back for another year, $10 million, and with $1 million of incentives. He was initially due $14 million from the Eagles this coming season. So it's great that, they get it's an extra year here for him. And look, Dallas Goedert has been injured a number of times, as us Eagles fans know, but he's over these years, but he has been a fantastic tight end, especially when it comes to the postseason, where he's among the best in the league. 12 career playoff games, 52 catches, 8th most by a tight end for 562 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's nothing to sneeze about, folks. And we know how critical Dallas Goedert was in the postseason on this recent run to the Super Bowl. Now, are we going to say that's going to happen this next year? No, you never know. Again, he's getting older and more often injured. He has only, since 2020, he has only averaged 12 and a half games per season. So, yes, he is missing some time. Howie Roseman here, I think, going against some pretty strong trends from not only himself, but his front office, believing at the end of the day that Dallas Goedert was worth it. And Goedert wanted to be here as well, because there were rumors that during the course of the NFL draft, teams wanted Goedert, but there were negotiations between the front office, Goedert, and other teams, and Goedert ended up wanting to stay with the Birds. So I'm glad this actually happened, because without a very good tight end in Dallas Goedert, it would have changed this offense a lot. And I still think the window is open for this Eagles team that they could potentially repeat this coming year if things work out well and if folks stay healthy. So I'm liking this contract extension.
Yeah, and it's harmless financially for the Eagles.
Yeah.
You bring back a popular player. Uh, Fans love him. I've never heard a Dallas Goedert sucks comment in my life.
Right. It's annoying when he's injured and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And look, Grant Calcaterra could catch the ball. Not a great blocker at all. In fact,
yeah,
stinks. But still, nobody, like you said, nobody really complained and griped about Dallas Goedert.
no, he's a mountain of a man. He can block, he can catch when he's healthy. Again, popular player. I so help me out here. The NFL contracts are so funky. Did he have the option of like opting out and going to free agency, or was it just kind of trade discussions? Was he under contract? He couldn't talk to anyone else.
He was under contract, really couldn't talk to anybody. So at this point, he still, I mean, at the end of the day, free agency was probably going to be the way that he was going to go after this season. But you know, he had a decent amount of leverage. He did, especially after this postseason.
Yeah, and it's a nice chunk of guaranteed change. 10 mil is I mean, that a lot of players don't. I mean, there's probably really good wide receivers that don't have 10 million guaranteed this year. You know what I mean? So
right,
that's a really nice chunk of change for him. No, it's one of those. It's a great Howie. This ain't gonna hurt us. All it is like there's no loss here. In bringing him back. Some fans might be like, why not sign him to a 2 or 3 year deal? But we all know like all the front end money would be guaranteed the first year anyway. It'd be like a 1 year contract. So there's no downside. Again, I think Howie's like nickname should be no downside. His draft picks are smart. His trades are smart. Like everything's like, you can't criticize me. Like what are we gonna say?
Right.
I should have given him 12. Like I should give him less money. Like it doesn't make any. Like he makes really smart moves.
He does. Howie's got a long leash at this point, and rightfully so. Rightfully so.
Yeah.
And it leads us to what we wanted to dive into before we got to this week's interview. Everyone is these Eagles drafts over the past 5 drafts, where Howie really has got his footing and really understood the draft process and the scouting department too. I mean, it's not just Howie, it's this Eagles scouting department, whether it's the pro scouting side and trying to bring free agents here, or whether it is the college scouting side. You look at the drafts from 2021 to 2025. Eric and I are going to rank these drafts based on what we think are the best. I mean, it's been a collective working group of folks in the front office, and inevitably Howie Roseman really making these decisions here. But if we rank these top 5, the past 5 years, if we rank these, Eric, of course, like this year, we have no idea what's going to happen, even though I absolutely love how the 2025 Eagles draft went with 4 defensive players right off the bat at linebacker / edge rusher with Jihad Campbell. And then you got safety, defensive tackle, cornerback. I'm sorry, the first 5 picks, and then linebacker as well. First 5 picks being defensive players. I absolutely love that. But I am going to put the 2025 draft as my number 5 here. So do you want to start off doing it like that here?
Yeah, it's the same. It's 2025 because there's no ranking it. Like I have no clue what's going to happen. Right. But just from prior drafts we're about to talk about, you can only be positive. There's just a shit ton of upside in all these picks. So
there are. So all right, well, why don't we go with number 4 here? What if you have to rank them? Your number 4 year from 2001 to 2024. Which would be your number 4 year?
Number 4. I mean, this is how
these
good
are
the
tough.
I mean, this is how good the drafts have been. Like I'm going to say 2021 is number 4 on my list.
Yes, it is for me too.
Yeah, it's Devontae Smith, Landon Dickerson, Milton Williams, and then it kind of Kenneth Gainwell, but like the rest of it's kind of. But
Milton Williams was in that draft. He was their third. He was their pick, and he was the highest paid free agent this year. So it's like, I mean, again, you still had a guy like Marlon Tuipulotu, who was a contributor on the defensive line too. It was not a bad draft, but I'm there at number 4 with you too.
I mean, 3 starters from the Super Bowl team in that draft, but still there's better ones. So
there are. So let's move on to number 3. Who's the third best draft class, do you think? So we're at 2002, or I'm sorry, 2022, 2023, or 2024. Which one is the number 3 for you?
this is going to seem blasphemous, but because I love this guy so much, 2023 is my number 3. I
Okay.
mean, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Tyler Steen. Jalen Carter just owned the NFL from the defensive tackle position this past season. He's the best defensive tackle. But again, I'm looking at the other two and I'm like, holy crap. Like so many damn good contributors. Really, really good draft. It's incredible. Like there's going to be a trend here in the rest of these, but like Howie's first 3 picks of like the last 5 drafts.
Yeah.
Just destroyed.
Yeah.
If you get 3 starters in your first 3 picks, that is that's a massive win because they're all cheap too. Like
Absolutely.
Yeah.
See, my number 3 is actually going to be the 2024 draft. As much as it pains me, because you had Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, who were your first 2 picks of the draft, such key players this year on the way to the Super Bowl. And of course, Cooper DeJean making that incredible pick 6 in the Super Bowl, just taking it from Patrick Mahomes. My God, I love that. Just that, what a great interception. But also from that draft too, you did have a bit of a drop off. You wanted to see wide receivers like Anais Smith and Johnny Wilson really stepping up. They really didn't in their second year. Dylan McMahon, who was the very last pick in the 6th round, I don't even think he was on the team. Will Shipley certainly, had some snaps here and there. Jalix Hunt is certainly a project as well. Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who knows if he's going to be a contributor in the future. But my number 3 is the 2024 draft, even given the sheer dominance by the 2 cornerbacks who they took in round 1 and round 2. That's where I'm at.
Okay. I made 2024 my second pick, but it's about like a nose hair. You know what I mean? Like,
and I made 2023 my third too. Okay. Yeah.
And the only reason I bumped up 2024 over 23 is just because, like, if there's been one position the Eagles had flaws throughout the past couple of years, it was the defensive backfield.
Yeah.
Good players, but they always, they got burnt quite a bit. There were some really bad games near the end of seasons, like where the Cowboys killed them. What was it, 2 years ago, when going into the playoffs? And that was always a tricky point. And if you go through, I mean, I'm looking at 21 through 23 right now, Howie's drafts. And he's got, I mean, there are no defensive backfield players taken within like the first 3 rounds. 0. Yeah. Like Sidney Brown, Zach McPherson. Like it's not pretty.
Right.
But he decided to nail that position down in 2024, but not just nail it down, but made the right picks. I mean, Quinyon Mitchell is a 10-year, hopefully, Eagle starter, shutdown corner for the next however many seasons. Cooper DeJean, awesome playing the Super Bowl. I hope he can like stay healthy and be that like great safety that the Eagles have needed for a long time.
Yeah.
It's the only reason like why I put it just a hair above 2023.
Okay, that's interesting, because with 2023 for me, 2023 comes in at number 2 for me. 1, because of Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, key contributors, with regard to the Super Bowl run this year. Tyler Steen has been a very, very serviceable backup offensive lineman, possibly is going to be the starter at right guard this year. Of course, Keely Ringo. Yeah, guess what? The guy really didn't get on the field other than special teams, but he was a special teams ace and was a major contributor in terms of opposing teams getting deep into their territory. And you don't have that this season if it's not for Keely Ringo. Tanner McKee, we saw him as a very, very good backup quarterback. People wanting him over what's his nuts? Kenny Pickett. Yes. And Moro Jamo. He's going to be a big time contributor this year for this Eagles team too. So like, that's why it's number 2 for me. Completely get where you're coming from. I really do, especially with the 2 cornerbacks right off the bat with the 2024 draft. But number 2 is 2023 for me.
2 very easily flippable drafts.
Yes, in my opinion. Absolutely. Well, we both have number 1 as the 2022 Eagles draft where you have only 5 players, folks, but my God, Jordan Davis, Cam Jurgens, Nakobe Dean, who finally came into his own this year, Kyron Johnson, who is
He's on the Titans.
played.
Yeah, he's not.
Yes, he's on the Titans. Yes, he did play some with the Eagles, though, and there was whether or not he was going to actually be a contributing member of the Eagles defense. But then Grant Calcaterra coming in and a very serviceable backup to Dallas Goedert. But yes, Jordan Davis, Cam Jurgens, Nakobe Dean, absolutely, this is number 1 for me.
It's not even close. I mean, like how he had 5 picks that year.
Yeah,
picks 3 starters in the first 3 picks.
Yeah,
and not just serviceable starter, like serviceable starters, like playmaking starters. Jordan Davis is not Jalen Carter, but I don't think Jalen Carter's job is as easy if Jordan Davis is not next to him. Cam Jurgens, took the mantle. He's the center from. I mean, what a tough position to step into this past season. Nakobe Dean's going to be a stud. Grant Calcaterra could be like the next tight end for the Eagles. Who knows? Probably not. But like beyond a serviceable backup, you knocked it out of the park 4 out of 5. I mean, how many shit teams are still like the Raiders every year suck. Their drafts
Panthers
suck.
Yes,
the Panthers. I mean, the Patriots were in the toilet for a couple of years because Bill Belichick, who's I would love to have a show about that right now. What the
you know what? We gotta do that the next time. We really gotta talk about Bill Belichick and what's happening in his life. My gosh.
Like, he was just give me a minute. Like a stoic, stubborn son of a bitch, like who got away with murder with the media because he won so many Super Bowls and he was a genius. And now he looks like a doddering old fool who married a call girl, supposedly. It's incredible.
He's the head coach. He's the head coach of yes.
She cut off the I can't. It's I love it because screw the Patriots, screw Bill Belichick. But it is awful to see a doddering old man getting taken advantage of like this.
Yes. And the fact that they were supposed to do a Hard Knocks down there at the University of North Carolina.
Now.
Nope.
No way. Unless she's the star.
Right, exactly.
It's going to happen.
It's incredible what's happened to this gentleman.
But anyway, people, the 2022 draft's my favorite one.
Yes, same here, folks. Same here. All right, very good. Buddy, I'm going to let you head out here. Great show, great discussions here. We're going to be talking about the NFC East with our guests this week. Any final words before we head out here?
I don't know if I like you closing out the show talking to a Cowboys fan, but
I know.
Sure.
I know.
All right.
The guys at Blogging the Boys are not bad. They're not bad guys. Well, only on Sundays.
Oh my God.
I know. Well, that's about it. Here, I'm gonna go to break. And then I'm gonna jump off a bridge.
Break your leg. Please.
Yes, exactly. All right, buddy. I'll see you later. And when we come back, folks, we're going to get into some NFC East talk. Stick with us. And joining us from Blogging the Boys this week, it is a great SB Nation site. And yes, Eagles fans, I know it's about the Dallas Cowboys, and he covers the Dallas Cowboys. However, great content always. Love the guys over at bloggingtheboys.com. We've got Dave Howman. Dave, buddy, how you doing, man?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm doing good. It's, we were chatting a little bit beforehand. Like it's the last few months have been a hard time for Cowboys fans in general,
yes.
Especially going into enemy territory with an Eagles podcast after that Super Bowl. So, but always happy to be on the show. Always happy to chop it up with you. So thanks for bringing me back.
I appreciate you, my friend. I really do. Look, I wanted to bring you on to talk about what this NFC East division really looks like now, especially after the draft, after what we've seen in free agency. And quite frankly, coincidentally enough, we had planned to have you on for a little while now. And then the news broke today that the Dallas Cowboys are acquiring George Pickens from the Pittsburgh Steelers in a trade. I didn't pull back the curtain, folks. I always provide our guests some of the topics that we're going to be getting into. Obviously, I didn't provide this one since it basically just happened, just a few hours ago. But Dave, what are your thoughts on George Pickens coming to the Dallas Cowboys? Have you had time to digest it?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because it feels like there's been rumors, every month of this offseason about, oh, the Cowboys are trading for George Pickens. He's been floated so often as like the most logical choice,
right?
Especially after the Steelers traded for DK Metcalf, who fills a very similar role. And so in a lot of ways, like I've been prepared for this, but I still didn't think it was actually going to happen.
Right.
But I mean, and we'll talk a little bit about this in the context of the draft as well. But going into the draft, the Cowboys, a lot of people thought they were going to take a receiver in the first round. A lot of people had their eyes on Tedero and McMillan out of Arizona, who he went a few picks earlier, and then they pivoted to Alabama guard Tyler Booker. So coming out of the draft, they didn't take a single receiver at any point throughout the draft. It kind of felt like a lot of people really liked the players that they got, but they were also saying, well, who else is catching the ball after CeeDee Lamb?
Right.
When CeeDee gets double teamed, which he will, who's going to catch the ball?
Right.
And this move really clears up a lot of that. George Pickens, I think his play style is a really good complement for CeeDee Lamb. Obviously, he's on the last year of his rookie deal, so there's questions about how long he's going to be around with the team, questions about his maturity, questions about his play effort, and things like that. There are a lot of things that it could be boom, could be bust, but it's the kind of player where I'm like, that's the kind of guy that you take a chance on and see if you can make it work. And I'm excited, but also recognize it's not, this move is not what's propelling the Cowboys to the Super Bowl.
Right. Absolutely. The offseason is about taking chances with every NFL team. At the end of the day, whether it's free agency, you look at some of the talent that is brought on by other teams, Dave, and not just the Cowboys, just in general, whether it's the Eagles, the Commanders, the Giants, the teams that we're going to be talking about on this particular episode and discussion. But that's what it is. It is a free-for-all of we have to take a chance on somebody to fill holes and to give us the best opportunity from a data-driven standpoint of what this person and talent can do for our team. So again, folks, we're talking to Dave here from bloggingtheboys.com. You are on the Twitter/X, correct?
I am, yes. I'm on Twitter at _DH44_. I'm also on Blue Sky at DH44. So same thing, but without the underscores, because I was able to get in early enough.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. It's key to get in early with some of these sites.
I kind of alternate between the two, but I'm active on both. So wherever you are, follow me. You'll get my thoughts and all my opinions on George Pickens and everything else that comes into my mind at various points.
Well, sounds good. Let's get into this NFC East division here because, when we look at the division overall, Dave, it's always a great division just filled with a lot of rivalries, storied histories. I mean, this past year, 2 NFC teams actually made the NFC Championship game. One became the Super Bowl champion, but this has always been a very fluid type of division with different winners every year, as we know. I mean, it's over 20 years since we've seen a repeat division champion. So when you look at the NFL landscape in general, how would you assess the NFC East division overall?
The NFC East is it's such a mystery to me every single year for that same reason of they haven't had a repeat champ in a long time.
Right.
Which is crazy when you think about it because during that same span, you've got the Giants in the Tom Coughlin era, the only team that, or well, not the only team now, but for a while they were the only team that could beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Eagles went on to do it, but the Eagles also had the Andy Reid era, which was a very successful time. Cowboys cycled through some coaches here and there, but they always had, almost every single coach during that span has taken them to the playoffs and had various levels of success.
Been a relevant team. The Cowboys have been a very relevant team.
They're always in it. They don't go very far, but they're in it. And, but it's been a very consistently competitive division. It still boggles my mind that we don't have a repeat champion every year. Every year it feels like this is definitely going to be the year something happens.
Yep.
So for that reason, I feel like there's the odds that the Eagles win the division this year have to be 0 at this point.
Exactly, right?
No way it can happen.
It gets me concerned as a fan, of course. It absolutely does. So, all right, well, let's dive into some of these teams here. Let's first start off with the Dallas Cowboys. First and foremost here, the team that you covered, Dave. When looking at their offseason, and when you read various articles, you hear what the pundits have to say, it seems that the Cowboys had what someone would call a rather, quote, weak off season from free agency and more holes than positions of strength, I think, heading into the draft. And then after the NFL draft, I'm wondering, how would you assess where the Cowboys are in terms of being a competitive team in the NFC East at this particular point in time as we're recording here in May?
Yeah, I think it's so funny to hear the characterization that it was a weak or a quiet offseason, which is fair. The Cowboys do what they always do. They don't sign a whole bunch of big names. They're not super involved in free agency. But comparatively to the last few years, they were very active in free agency. They didn't spend a whole lot of money still, but they brought in through outside external free agent signings and trades, with the Pickens trade now in up to, that's 14 guys that they've brought in from outside the organization. That's more than the last 2 seasons combined.
Yeah.
So they've been very active. Now, these are not, aside from George Pickens, these aren't really, huge names. Linebackers Jack Sanborn and Kenneth Murray. One's a former first-round pick. One has a long history of playing with new defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus. They signed a few different offensive linemen that have experience starting in various roles, but aren't necessarily going to be surefire starters, especially after drafting Tyler Booker. So they did a lot of moves where, going into the draft, like I said, everyone thought they were going to go receiver at some point early on. But outside of receiver, it didn't really feel like there was any position where Cowboys fans were going to say, if we don't get this, like, we are screwed. We have no other options.
Right.
The only position was wide receiver, and ironically, it's the one they did not address at all.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
But they came out of this draft, I think, with some really, really great value in terms of the players that they got. There's been a lot of conversation about Tyler Booker. If it felt like a reach. I feel like it was a reach. He was somebody that a lot of mock drafts had going towards the end of the first round, if not, early second round. They took him at 12th overall. It's a little rich, but at the same time, he was the best guard in the draft. He's going to be a plug and play starter at right guard, where they're now losing Zach Martin, who retired. Right. Second round, they get Boston College edge rusher Donovan Ezeraku, who had 16.5 sacks this last year. Pair him up with Micah Parsons. That's nice. Third round, you get Savon Ravel out of East Carolina, cornerback. Would have been a first-round player if he didn't tear his ACL this past season. So, those are 2 guys that a lot of people thought have first-round talent, and for a couple different reasons they were available where they were. They got 2 running backs. That was another big point of emphasis was, last year they kind of punted on the running back position. Rico Dowdle turned out to be a 1,000-yard rusher. He left in free agency for the Panthers. And so they drafted Jaden Blue out of Texas, Phil Maffa out of Clemson, kind of a thunder and lightning combo. Jaden Blue is very fast, but he's kind of thin, kind of small. And Maffa is the exact opposite. Not the fastest guy out there, but he's just, I think he's like 240 pounds of pure muscle, very much a short yardage kind of guy. And they feel really good about that combo. Maybe not necessarily being workhorse duo right from the start as rookies, but some of those guys they brought in free agency also were Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders. Of course, Eagles fans are familiar with Sanders.
Oh, yes.
Guys that have played at a high level, but not recently, which is why they were in the Cowboys range. So in a lot of ways, the George Pickens trade is kind of the cherry on top of what's been a very quietly effective offseason, I think, for restoring a lot of fans' faith in this team, especially after the way that Mike McCarthy left the team, and then all the controversy and I guess just uncertainty about Brian Schottenheimer being elevated in a pretty unorthodox way, going from non-play calling offensive coordinator to now he's the head coach, the offensive coordinator, the leader of this team when nobody else was even considering him. So all in all, from where we were at the start of his introductory press conference to where we're at today, I think the Cowboys have done a lot to earn themselves some goodwill and make fans cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, well, I got to say, you mentioned one Miles Sanders here. I am a Penn State fan. I am a Penn State fan, as listeners of our show know, and it pains me every single time a Penn State guy heads to the Dallas Cowboys. So some pain has been shot through my heart this offseason, just to let you know, Dave. So
on that note, real quick, when the Cowboys were on the board or on the clock at 12, Tyler Warren, Penn State legend Tyler Warren was still available. And I was tweeting, I was posting on Blue Sky all over, anywhere that I could post. I was like, I want Tyler Warren. Like, I know the Cowboys have Jake Ferguson, but I want Tyler Warren. And then, of course, they draft Tyler Booker. And so when they get up there and they say they selected Tyler, my heart stopped. And then they said Booker. And I was like, so.
Well, the same thing happened with me, because like Abdul Carter goes to the New York Giants, and we're going to be getting into the New York Giants in just a second here. But yes, Abdul Carter goes to the Giants. Micah Parsons has been on the Cowboys now for some time. When Sean Lee was on the Cowboys, I tell you, it's tough. It is very tough, Dave, to be a Penn State fan and having to see them go to the Dallas Cowboys. But like I said, the New York Giants are who I want to dive into next with you here, because like for many of us football fans, NFC East fans, and followers of our teams here, we just love seeing what the Giants are doing or not doing. We love their front office. We love Joe Shane as he blunders his way through the offseason here. Look, they went heavy with the quarterback position during free agency with Russell Wilson and with Jameis Winston. They drafted Jackson Dart, actually moved up to get him. For me, again, the heartbreaker was Abdul Carter going to this team with their first pick, but they still have a lot of holes all around. And I'm wondering, how would you assess where the Giants are in terms of being a competitive team in this division, given the offseason that they've had?
Yeah, I mean, I think their best case scenario this season is basically being what they were in Brian Dable's first year, where you get a couple upset wins here and there. You beat teams that are clearly worse than you.
Right.
Maybe sneak your way into the playoffs, although I think the NFC crowd is tougher this year than it was back in 2021. I think,
especially with a healthy Dak Prescott, coming in for the Cowboys.
Dak Prescott, especially looking at the NFC North, how great they were last year, and then their worst team just hired, the best head coaching candidate in Ben Johnson. So, but I think that's probably their best case scenario. If the quarterback comes into its form, whether it's Russell Wilson, whether it's Jackson Dart, whoever it is, I don't think best case scenario happens for them. But it was really interesting to see how Joe Shane handled it, because he didn't really make moves that felt like a GM who's on the hot seat.
Yeah.
Especially not taking a quarterback, third overall, going with best player available in Abdul Carter and saying hey, we can figure out quarterback. Obviously they traded up to get Dart. And like you said, the roster still has a lot of holes. It's not like they've completely perfected this thing. But at the same time, you look, Russell Wilson was a very productive starter in Seattle for a very long time. This past year in Pittsburgh, he was not super consistent, but he had definitely some really good moments here and there, and they took him to the playoffs. So you can be a winning team there. I really like what they did at running back with Cam Scadaboo. As you can see, went to Arizona State, so I love Cam Scadaboo. I think he and Tyrone Tracy are going to be a really dynamic duo there. Pained me to see, similar to you,
right?
State guys going to Dallas. Pained me to see him go to the Giants. And it took a while for him to get drafted too. And I kept thinking man, when am I going to find out where he plays? And of course, it was to a division rival.
Yeah.
So that was hard to stomach. But I mean, outside of Malik Neighbors, they don't really have a whole lot of weapons for Russell Wilson to work with. Don't really have much of an offensive line, which is the biggest concern for me. Is Russ is not exactly the best with handling pressure.
Yeah.
And now he doesn't have an offensive line. The defense, though, I think could be good enough to keep them in some games now with all that pass rush. They brought in on the secondary, they brought in both Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland to that secondary. I thought those were really good pickups. But again, you're looking and you're like, you've got some talent here and there, but it's not really a complete team. I could see them going the route of they can pull some upsets here and there. They're not going to be as bad as they were this past season. But if I were a betting man, which thankfully I'm not, I would probably pick them to finish last in this division.
Yeah.
But I think that mostly just speaks to how talented this division is right now.
I also think it speaks to how poorly, frankly, they have actually drafted over the past, say, 3 to 4 years. I mean, this is a time when your team, you want those players from even 3 years ago to be starters, to be real solid contributors to your team. Not seeing that necessarily with this New York Giants team for sure. But what we are seeing,
Thibodeau,
go ahead.
That was his first. That was Shane's first pick. Was
Kayvon
Thibodeau, and now Brian Burns, Abdul Carter. Where does he fit into the rotation on the edge?
Absolutely. But like, there is a team in this division that I think really shocked us all this past season, and that is the Washington Commanders. So let's get into this Commanders team and their offseason, because I do wonder what Jaden Daniels will do for his encore this coming season, Dave. It's hard to believe that he's going to put up the same kind of performance that he did this coming year like he did last year. I mean, we saw it with Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia. Certain teams figure you out here and there. And then as the quarterback and leader of an offense, you need to be able to adjust. It's going to be interesting to see how Jaden Daniels does that adjusting this coming season. Now they have talent in Laramie Tunsil. Deebo Samuel, of course, is on offense. What type of weapon will he possibly be for them? Trey Amos is now in the secondary for Dan Quinn's defense here. How do you think we should be looking at this Commanders team? A team, again, who went to the NFC Championship game this past year, as this team is really moving forward. A lot of momentum with this new stadium talk as well. Mm-hmm. What do you think about the Commanders here?
Well, the first thing I think about when I think about the Commanders is how badly I want that for the Cowboys.
Right.
Because they have Dan Snyder, this owner that fans have just universally hated.
They got rid of him. Yes.
Everything's coming up Commanders.
Yes.
And then, Jerry Jones is getting on and he's talking about, whatever Jerry Jones talks about. We're just like, man, we're stuck with this guy.
Till his dying day. Yes.
And they have Dan Quinn as the head coach, who of course came from Dallas, and a lot of Cowboys fans wanted him to be the next head coach whenever Mike McCarthy was done. So a little bit of jealousy there. Also, like I said, I went to Arizona State. Jaden Daniels first played at Arizona State, and then he eventually transferred to LSU in the wake of the recruiting scandal, which of course was perpetrated by head coach and former Philadelphia Eagle Herm Edwards.
Yes. Yep.
just one more way the Eagles have caused me immense pain in my life. But anyway, to the point about the Commanders, though, I think they have a lot of good momentum going for them. I think that they've handled the offseason probably in the best way, because Jaden Daniels, it's all going to come down to Jaden Daniels. Like, he powered them to that great year last year, and a lot of people looked at that and said, well, their defense was pretty terrible, so they're probably going to spend all offseason trying to beef up their defense. And they brought some guys in here and there. Like you said, Trey Amos, I think he's going to be a really good starter in that defense. But they also really, more than anything, doubled down on offense. Like you said, they traded for Tunsil. They drafted Josh Connerly, another offensive lineman in the first round. Getting Deebo Samuel is big. It seems like their whole offseason approach was, how can we really go all in on offense, make sure that Jaden Daniels has enough support that, one, he doesn't have to shoulder the load all year like he did this past year, and two, how do we prevent him from having a sophomore slump? Now, that said, it could still happen. He starts missing open guys. He starts making the wrong read on those option plays. No amount of talent in the world will make up for that. So it really still does come down to the quarterback and how he's able to handle it. And, having watched him at Arizona State and then following him when he went to LSU, my general impression is that he won't have much of a sophomore slump, because this is a guy with just a really high work ethic, high football IQ. I think he's somebody that is going to attack it in the right way. You mentioned Jalen Hurts and how teams kind of figured him out after a little bit. He also he changed his game a little bit.
There were adaptions.
He's and I think similar mental makeup of, Jaden's the kind of guy that he's going to figure out how to figure out them figuring him out. So that's really, I think, in my mind, the hope for the Commanders not being as good as if Jaden Daniels just drops the ball.
Yes.
Which I don't see happening, but a guy can hope.
Yeah, exactly. We all have hope. This is the time of year in the NFL during the offseason where we all have hope. And I say that as being a Philadelphia Eagles fan. Of course, they won the Super Bowl this past year, and the hope is that there is a repeat in the future. So let's talk about this Eagles team here. I think still slated to probably be one of the top powerhouses in the NFC and likely in the NFC East division, Dave. I mean, they lost some talent on defense like Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, losing CJ Gardner-Johnson. I was very concerned about that in terms of the back end of the defense. But they drafted Jihad Campbell, who was one of the most versatile defensive players in the draft. The offensive core is still there, including an offensive line that just punishes defenses in the trenches. What are your thoughts on how the Eagles and their offseason has gone thus far and how they're looking as a team moving forward, possibly being able to repeat? If you can, take off the Cowboys blinders for just a second, in an objectionable fashion. How do you see this Eagles offseason going?
Yeah, I mean, first of all,
he's like, well, where do I go with this here?
the biggest thing for me, anytime that a team is coming off a Super Bowl win, is how much is that Super Bowl hangover going to be an impact? Because
absolutely,
it's very real. I mean, yes. The last time the Eagles won a Super Bowl, you guys almost missed the playoffs. You had to win the last 3 games of the regular season. You snuck in as the last playoff team. And that was with Doug Peterson as the head coach, which I don't think it's controversial to say he's a little bit more of a stable personality than Nick Sirianni.
Yes, very well said. Yes.
A little more volatile when things are going bad with Sirianni in that locker room. So, and even, I mean, the year after the Eagles were in the Super Bowl and lost to the Chiefs, that was the season where they brought in Matt Patricia, right? And and
it was just a disaster. I mean, it was falling off a cliff like we've never seen, never seen, Dave.
And one of my favorite seasons, personally.
Yes, I would imagine. Yes.
You said how you're a big fan of Joe Shane. I'm a big fan of Matt Patricia.
There you go.
Yes. And but really, I do always question how much that hangover is going to be an impact there. And then, I look at the Eagles roster, like you said, a big part of that offensive nucleus is back, but I think you guys are rightfully the odds-on favorite to repeat in the division. But I also definitely see a world where things kind of fall apart a little bit. Saquon Barkley, we know he's had the injury history. He had more carries last year than he's ever had in his entire career. Is he going to be able to hold up?
Yeah, I honestly, I cannot see Saquon Barkley having the same amount of carries, the yardage that he had last year. The ball's going to need to get thrown around or given to other weapons on the offense. He just can't. He can't have the same type of season he had last year.
Right. It doesn't seem. He'll probably still be good. It just doesn't seem as sustainable. Right. And then you've got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. They both missed some games with injury this past year. Dallas Goedert's kind of getting up there in age, and they may be trading him. Who knows? And then, of course, there's the change in offensive coordinator. So, I'm not saying that like the offense is going to fall off cliff, but I'm like, if you're looking for a way that they don't repeat,
that they could stumble a little bit. Yeah.
You can see how, where those things would happen a little bit. You mentioned also some of the guys that they lost on defense. Vic Fangio is an absolute genius. He'll find a way to make up for it, but there might be a couple of games here and there, especially early on, where the defense struggles a little bit before they iron out the kinks. In such a competitive division, that might be, again, if you're looking for a way to explain how they don't repeat as division champs, that might be where it comes into play. But this is, Howie Roseman is one of the best GMs in the NFL. He is always going to figure out how to plug those holes, how to add talent. If he ever gets into the regular season and he feels like I haven't done enough, he will make those trades. He will be aggressive. That said, I didn't really love their draft.
Okay.
I didn't hate it, but in terms of the 4 NFC East teams, it was the one I liked the least. You mentioned Jihad Campbell, obviously very versatile player, but it is also the first time since 1979 the Eagles drafted an off-ball linebacker, which also in that same draft, you guys also took a kicker and a punter. So this was very much before position value was like a big thing in drafts.
Yes.
Very different time. But it just felt like, and trading up a spot to take an off-ball linebacker, even though he does offer pass rush value, it felt very non-Howie. And And then I loved the Andrew Makuba pick. I thought he was really undervalued. And then all the other guys that you took, I don't really see making a huge impact year one. Although they all have like potential to develop into starters down the road, but I don't see
significant upside. Yeah,
necessarily being like they're gonna be part of the 2025 team in a meaningful way. So again, I didn't think it was a terrible draft, but it, when the Campbell pick happened, I saw a lot of people that were like, how he does it again. And I was like, when he traded up, I assumed it was going to be for a receiver, an offensive lineman, a pass rusher.
Yeah.
Because that's what the Eagles do.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I wasn't completely blown away, but again, I mean, the Eagles, coming off a Super Bowl, you don't necessarily need to find, all the best playmakers, because obviously you had enough talent to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, buddy, that's going to do it for us here as we're running out of time. And I got to tell you, folks, it was great talking to him. Again, Dave Howman from bloggingtheboys.com. You can follow him on the Twitter/X at _DH44_. He is a great follow over on Blue Sky at DH44. Dave, buddy, it was great talking to you, man. Seriously, so much fun. It's going to be great. I'd love to have you on at some other point down the road. We'll talk more NFC East and where these teams are at. I'd love to have you back, my friend.
Yeah, I'm always down. Love chatting with you. Hopefully next year we're talking about after a Cowboys Super Bowl. But
there you go, right? There you go. I'm not hoping for it, but look, for you, let's hope for it for you, okay? That we can end there.
It would be for Penn State, Micah Parsons, and Miles Sanders. You could enjoy it from that perspective.
Oh, I love that spin. He's Dave Howman, folks. bloggingtheboys.com. Buddy, join us at some point down the road. I'd love to have you back on.
Yeah, thank you.